country club Christian, I'm a zealot. Truth's gonna hurt, man, I ain't tryna sell it. And if you think you can refute it, you'll regret it. Cause that's the way it is, like it is, how I tell it. Ain't a country club Christian, I'm a zealot. Truth's gonna hurt, man, I ain't tryna sell it. And if you think you can refute it, you'll regret it. Cause that's the way it is, like it is, how I tell it.
Okay, firstly, I gotta address apologetics. It doesn't make sense, I'm not sorry, I don't get it. The fact that he was crucified means that we're all indebted. We should demand to have a culture that doesn't soon forget it. Every knee shall bow, every tongue shall confess it. Christ is king, listen up, get the message. The time is short, the deception is impressive. The church itself is corrupted and wretched. They preach about grace, no righteousness expected. God gaze at the pulpit because the sin is accepted. The devil calls, they don't even try to reject it. They're employed by Satan, they are tax exempted.
Ain't a country club Christian, I'm a zealot. Truth's gonna hurt, man, I ain't tryna sell it. And if you think you can refute it, you'll regret it. Cause that's the way it is, like it is, how I tell it. Ain't a country club Christian, I'm a zealot. Truth's gonna hurt, man, I ain't tryna sell it. And if you think you can refute it, you'll regret it. Cause that's the way it is, like it is, how I tell
It's
it.
neither land of the free, nor is it home of the brave. When you got people here killing babies every day, and all the Christians here think that they can get away if they throw a couple bucks into the bucket on Sunday. But I don't think that that's the way it works. He said to seek the kingdom and his righteousness first, but you wanna grab a handbag, a Rolex, and what's worse, you think that you deserve it, but the bubble's about to burst. It's time to rise, sell the cloak for a weapon. Got the sword in my left, in the right, Smith & Wesson. And I don't think it's wise for you to try to be testing. If you become a Goliath, then I'ma teach you a lesson. It's apostasy, and what the cost will be is the people in the church and state accosting me. But I'm speaking honestly, you are not the boss of me, because I only give allegiance to the one true king. And I don't care if we burn down this whole country, cause it's wretched and rusty and rotten, stupid and ugly. And I got no love for churches and preachers set up above me, cause their democracy's about to be replaced with monarchy.
Ain't a country club Christian, I'm a zealot. Truth's gonna hurt, man, I ain't tryna sell it. And if you think you can refute it, you'll regret it.
Is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Main Character Podcast, made possible by the Cult of Con. That's you guys. I'm Con Man, and thank you for being here. Welcome to level 73, everybody. Wow. Level 73, crazy. And for those of you guys who are just getting here, we are entering part 3 of the first ever multi-part main character podcast episode. Literally the first time we've ever done this before. And it's mostly because everything that we've been talking about is culminating in what could probably be the most crazy conspiracy theory that I've ever delivered on this channel, and probably the first one that I think is authentically mine. My own very own conspiracy theory. Imagine that. Right here on the cutting edge, made possible by the Cult of Con. Again, that is you guys. I am Con Man. Thank you for being here. And I will mention tonight, as I often forget to mention, tonight's episode is made possible by the Christian Dominion movement, because the truth should not only be declared, it should be imposed. Let's go. We're popping over to chat right away. We're going to have to go straight to the meat of the episode tonight, guys, because this is seriously, it's like an episode of Ceiling Fan Man over here. I have more tabs than I know what to do with. I have so much stuff to download into your noggins tonight. I'm an actual teacher tonight. Imagine that every other episode of me aimlessly rambling didn't exist, and this was the first time you ever heard me. Professor Con. Put on my professor glasses. Let's go. Boom. Bam. Thank you all so much for being here. I would love to take the time to thank each and every one of you for being here, but I cannot do that because we have to get to the meat and potatoes. So one honorary, because I love you all. And of course, because we're always trying to grow and transcend. And so that means sometimes our party bus has to be a party blimp. Yeah. I think you have to have been here for a while to understand that one. All right, so as I said, part 3 of our crazy multi-part series is actually really exciting to be getting here onto this tonight. So I guess we got a couple of things to cover really quick. Wednesday, hump day, trash day. I know one of you guys will remind me. I've never forgotten to take out the trash on Wednesday. I don't think I can forget tonight. It's like, it's maximum. It's time to go. All right. Let's see. So you guys are so sweet. I posted a post the other day, and I guess maybe I wasn't really clear about what I was trying to say, but I appreciate all of you so much for considering me and praying for me in the last couple of days. I had this post where I was like, I stared into the abyss, and the abyss stared back. And I was just trying to be, I guess, I do this thing where I tell jokes and people don't know that I'm joking, because I'll say something dead serious, and then I'll joke, and then I'll say something else serious, and they're like, what do you really believe? What do you think? What are you talking about? Anyway, I was mostly kind of joking about the abyss. Like, I didn't realize until after people were like, are you okay? I'm like, oh, I didn't mean like that abyss. Like, I didn't mean I was like staring over the edge of a bridge or something. I just meant I went on to X and I was like browsing through X in the midst of, as you know, the last 4 days or whatever, just been like psyop on top of tragedy, whichever it is. And so there's been all this stuff, and everybody's just the vitriol, the horrific nature of humanity in full force. And I don't know why I thought that I could go back and just look at that. Anyway, I deleted my X account, just deactivated. I was like, oh no, I can't deal with that. You know, it reminds me why we create an echo chamber like this, is because this is the best kept secret on the internet. I would hate to be a popular figure and have people coming in here and ruining all the fun. It's honestly, it's a joy to be here with all of you guys on Wednesday. I would not change it for the world. You know, hopefully the channel stays right where we're at. I am happy with that. Again, thank you guys so much for being here, and thank you guys for looking out for me and for all the prayers and all that. That was really awesome. All right, before we get into the meat, let's go ahead and give a special shout out to all of our supporters over here on patreon.com/thecultofcon. Thank you guys so much for helping to power this channel financially, and for all of your wonderful support. You guys are super great. Some people were asking me, and we were discussing the idea of potentially doing like a $1 tier. We have a lot of free members, and perhaps some of you guys want to support, but like $5 is like, you know, I know this economy. It's like a whole gallon of milk, and trust me, I drink like a gallon of milk a day, so I know how much stuff costs. But if you guys are serious about that, you know, let me know, leave a comment or something, because if you guys want to contribute in a way that's like small but collectively big, we could do a $1 tier. It's no big deal. Otherwise, don't worry about it. Thank you guys for just being here and supporting and all that. And let me just go ahead and slide over to the thumbnail here so we can just take a quick look at what we're talking about tonight. Tonight is the perfected device, Time Traveler 3. So we've been on this Time Traveler series talking about, like, you know, the fabric of the universe, time traveling, teleportation, all kinds of good stuff. And there's actually some really good meat in there. So if you ever get the chance and you want to go back, feel free to listen to the last 2 episodes, level 71 and 72. Go with this one as well. So this is the perfected device. And we talked about how funny it is. It's like, it took me 3 days to get to the platform to deliver this insane theory that I was calling the ace in the hole, but it wasn't really the ace in the hole. It was just kind of like, if for some reason I ran out of stuff to talk about, that was like my plan with the first episode. And now it has like transcended into a 3-part series about trying to get all of the foundational elements put out so that when I land the theory, it doesn't sound completely insane. So I just need to indoctrinate you with a little bit of Kool-Aid for the next couple of minutes here, and then I will deliver to you the final curtain call, and hopefully it won't be too crazy for you guys to handle. But early in this series, and we talked about the good old days of conspiracy theory research. I think we all kind of remember what that was like, you know, searching, seeking, digging around, trying to find the truth, only to realize that things are actually really horrible. Like, the truth hurts. It's not great. But I think that's part of being adult about it, and being mature is realizing that things are going to be rough sometimes. It's like part of the journey. And we all kind of wish we could get back to that good old kind of speculative era before we realized how actually concrete so much of this stuff was and how dark it really is. You know, there was something fun about being able to pontificate a little bit, and that's really what I want to do tonight, is share with you guys a kind of a wild idea that just might be grounded in reality. So we'll talk about that. But before I do, I just want to share a couple of thoughts that I had about some stuff that's been going on lately, and it's really pertinent, obviously, because earlier, you know, Paul was touching on it as well. It seems like it's a very big topic in modern day right now, is this whole transhumanism thing. And I could probably make an entire episode talking about the transhumanism issue, but I want to give my thoughts on it really quick, just because I saw this guy, Andrew Wilson, who's kind of like a Christianish guy. I mean, who am I to say? I don't even know what a Christian is anymore. I'm only like a kingdom guy. I can only tell you about the kingdom at this point. Religion, I don't know about that. Anyway, so Andrew Wilson, he's debating this guy. What was his name? Zoltan Istvan. And he's like a scientific guy. And you got to give it to Zoltan, because I don't believe he's evil. I think he really does want the best for people. But he's like one of those guys that thinks we should all be like cyberpunk augmented brain chip. Like, he's like, it's the future of the human race. Like, maybe. Actually, no, I don't think so. But what I'm getting at is like, I know where his heart is. He's not trying to turn everyone to a cyborg because he's evil. He's trying to turn everyone to a cyborg because he thinks it'll make life better. So I understand these are the ramblings of lost men. Like, if you don't have Jesus Christ, how can you know what the truth is? You can't have the truth without the way, the truth, and the life. So of course he's out here digging around in the dirt trying to find solutions to worldly problems. Like, I totally get it. It's just I know. I've spoken about this in the past, right? Like, humans, we have this tendency to try to do God's stuff with human ambition. And of course, it doesn't work. Like, even just the simplest things where we have achieved some level of success, like you're flying a private jet, or you're riding in a car and you have we've harnessed these metals and alloys and engineered them into specific fitments, and we have ways to conduct thermal and compression energy and like turn it into kinetic, and we're moving, but it's such a thrashing. It's not magic and transcendent and beautiful like if you could just levitate by the power of God. You know what I mean? We do this human version of trying to access authority in the realm, and we do it through, as we discussed in previous chapters, we want to move a mountain, so we start using our hands, and then we get a shovel, and then we get an excavator, and we're constantly trying to build our way to salvation, instead of realizing that through Christ we can have faith the size of a mustard seed and simply tell the mountain to move. You see where I'm going with that? There's two ways you can go by: the righteous path, the authoritative path, the authority and the spirit to do the things that you need to do in the world, or there's the carnal, material path. And unfortunately, the transhumanist thing is to try and take the carnal path to ascension, and it's foolish. It's a fool's errand, because ultimately you rely on the imperfect creations of imperfect people to try to attain perfection. And it doesn't matter what you build in the world, you suck. You are made of rotting meat. You are not going to reach transcendence by any goodwill of your own or by any machine you can fabricate. I'm sorry. So I guess there's probably more to be said about it, but I felt the need to kind of get it out because especially people are talking about it lately. I think that it's born out of, for many people, a natural, a native desire that's inside of everyone to see the world made whole and good. Nobody wants to see wickedness except for truly lost individuals. It's just that without that light of life and truth from Christ Jesus, there's no realistic path to healing the world or making things a better place and stuff. So I understand, again, the debate, but unfortunately you see stuff like Andrew Wilson giving the religious angle, and religion isn't the answer either. The church, as we know it, has never delivered anybody to anything. It's like about making people comfortable in their misery instead of teaching people to be empowered in their authority, which is kind of what the kingdom does. In the same way that church makes you happy to sit in a chair every Sunday, the kingdom makes you happy to take over the world in the name of God. It's like when there's problems in the world, as a kingdom citizen, you identify them as unacceptable, and then you go the next step and say, it's my job to fix it because of who I am in Christ, and I can do it because of who Christ is. Amen. Anyway, so that's my little spiel on transhumanism before we get into the good goods. But holy crap, I mean, whatever it is, right? Conspiracy theories, talking about wild ideas, it'll make you a pariah. It'll make people hate you. And I think that what we've learned is that it's not about making friends. In this world, we will have tribulation, but we must be of good cheer because we know that Jesus Christ has overcome the world. And for whatever mission that we've been sent into the world, that's our prime focus. Not being popular, not having friends, not being well-liked. And unfortunately, that's the battle we choose to take. You enter into this whole journey, this walk, enter into the kingdom, and now all of a sudden you find yourself in opposition to all the things that used to make sense. Everything that used to just flow naturally now is in question, and you're in opposition to all these forces. It's an incredible battle, and that's kind of the route we take as believers. And once you kind of have that mentality, you're ready to take on any battle, even if it means being the one guy out of everybody who says, I don't think this is right. I don't think we should trust Jesuits who rewrote the Bible and erased history. I don't think we should listen to them. I don't think we should trust their maps. If I say stuff like that, I'm the outcast among outcasts, but I have to be, because that's the responsibility that we all have to stand for what's actually true. I don't trust Jesuits, just like I don't trust NASA. Sorry. Anyway, moving on. So what does all this connect? Okay, so in part one of this, we talked about time travel as a biblical concept, and we even looked at biblical examples of people moving through time and space in effectively teleportation. And we decided, if you can go from here to there like that, that's got to be teleportation. Teleportation is time travel because you're moving through space without the time factor. So it would basically be like going through like you move to the future. I guess you would almost go back in time because it would have taken you however many hours to get there, but you got there however many hours earlier. So there's a lot of that going on in the Bible, and it's really crazy. It's like Christianity just doesn't talk about it because they don't know how to explain any of that. They don't have answers to this stuff, so they just kind of gloss over it. Yeah, and then Philip was found in whatever that city was north of Gaza or wherever that was. Anyway, in part 2 of the series, we looked back on conspiracies past and the idea of the looking glass and seeing time through like an astral or a spiritual lens. I'm trying to imagine what it must be like to see God or see the world through God's eyes, as though it was like all things happening at once, this omnipotence that he has. That's what it would be like to exist outside of time like God. So we discussed ideas like that, not to say that we understand God or being God, but just theorizing about stuff like that. And just thinking about how different it would be to be an angel or like a entity outside of time and space, like the juxtaposition of their perspective on the universe versus ours, which is like constrained by time and space. It's just an interesting concept. But in this final chapter, I want to talk a little bit more about the concept of present time manipulation. Not just the idea of traveling through time and space or manipulating the perception of something, but actually like being in the realm as things that you see around you are changing, and that time travel doesn't always have to be you moving through time, but it could be that items themselves are moving through time, or that time is changing, or just, the idea that these changes are happening presently, not in the past or waiting to happen in the future, but that we're living through time changing as we speak. And so there's some stuff I want to talk about. Even our own place in history is a mystery as we ponder topics like eschatology and timeline deceptions. Is it possible our world is being manipulated right here and now, changing what we perceive about the present day or even our own memories? This causes us to question whether we can even trust our own senses. Just like in the case of the heliocentric deception, we're told not to believe what we can see. Is it possible that we are undergoing yet another monumental gaslighting, one that calls into question the visible physical integrity of the very world itself? All right, let's go. Jesus reads minds. Okay, so I want to open up the Bible. I love doing that. I love when that's the first thing that we're doing here. And we're opening up the Bible to the book of John, chapter 4, verse 16. And this is the story of Jesus with the woman at the well. And you guys know the story, but we'll just jump right in. He says, Jesus said to her, "Go, call your husband and come here." The woman answered and said, "I have no husband." Jesus said to her, "You have well said, 'I have no husband,' for you have had 5 husbands, and the one whom you have now is not your husband. In that you spoke truly." The woman said to him, "Sir, I perceive that you're a prophet. Our fathers worshipped on this mountain, and you Jews say that in Jerusalem is the place where one ought to worship." Jesus said to her, "Woman, believe me, the hour is coming when you will neither The hour is coming when you will neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem worship the Father. You worship what you do not know. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. But the hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth, for the Father is seeking such to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth." Now, there's more here than really what we need. We could read the whole chapter. It's such a beautiful story. But the point is that Jesus knows this woman's backstory. He knows everything about her without having asked, without having inquired. And it goes on, this is annoying. It goes on to say, he tells her to go to town and tell people, I don't remember where it is, but he tells her to go tell everybody. And she's like, "Look, everyone needs to come meet the man who told me everything I've ever done." It's just really an impressive story. One of many, in fact, where Jesus demonstrates his ability to know what people are thinking without any realistic explanation. In the book of John, chapter 2, verse 24, it says, "Jesus did not commit himself to them because he knew all men and had no need that anyone should testify of man, for he knew what was in man." Interesting. So he didn't need anybody to tell because he already knew. Clairvoyance. Luke chapter 9, verse 47. And Jesus, perceiving the thought of their heart, took a little child and set him by him, and said to them, Whoever receives this little child in my name receives me, and whoever receives me receives him who sent me, for he who is least among you all will be great. Am I in the wrong? Oh, and Jesus perceiving the thought of their heart. All right, so just little examples, all right, one after the other. He perceived the thought of their heart. He knew what they were thinking. It's so cool. All right, Luke chapter 5, verse 22. But when Jesus perceived their thoughts, he answered and said to them, Why are you reasoning in your hearts? Which is easier to say, Your sins are forgiven you, or say, Rise up and walk? But that you may know that the Son of Man has power on earth to forgive sins. He said to the man who was paralyzed, I say to you, arise, take up your bed, and go to your house. But again, Jesus perceived their thoughts, and he asked them, why are you reasoning in your hearts? So he's not just thinking he knows what they say. He's like, yo, I know what you're thinking. Why are you thinking that? That's so wild. All right, Matthew 9, verse 4. But Jesus, knowing their thoughts, said, why do you think evil in your hearts? Okay, so the other perspective, another testimony of the same. And then the final honorable mention here of telepathy, effectively, right? This is Saul on the road to Damascus. Saul, still breathing threats and murder against the disciples of the Lord, went to the high priest, this is Acts chapter 9, and asked letters from him to the synagogues of Damascus, so that if he found anyone who were of the way, whether men or women, he might bring them bound to Jerusalem. As he journeyed, he came near Damascus, and suddenly a light shone around him from heaven. Then he fell to the ground and heard a voice saying to him, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? And he said, Who are you, Lord? Then the Lord said, I am Jesus whom you are persecuting. It is hard for you to kick against the goads. So he, trembling and astonished, said, Lord, what do you want me to do? Then the Lord said to him, Arise and go into the city, and you will be told what you must do. And the men who journeyed with him stood speechless, hearing a voice, but seeing no one. So it happened that Saul, who was against the kingdom, effectively, punishing and accosting God's people, came under the duress of this spirit. This light beamed on him. And all of a sudden he heard Jesus, and his attitude changed real quick, right? It's like he was out persecuting everybody because he didn't know who Jesus was. And then all of a sudden he knew who Jesus was. And he went from like out to get him to, what will you have me do, Lord? He called him Lord immediately. He was like, oh, Lord, who are you, Lord? It's so funny, man. Whew, that's so funny. Who are you, Lord? He just knows already. It's so great. So anyway, the other guys heard it too. So what I'm referring to here is effectively telecommunications, but remotely telepathy, right? Jesus reads minds. And it's interesting because you have him reading people's minds, getting their backstory, reading people's minds, seeing what they're thinking in the moment, and even telepathically projecting into people's minds audio in such a potent way that other guys standing there are hearing it too. Because there's like waves of energy going like, through some sort of a beam. It's like laser telecommunication. So crazy. So this is just another list of examples in the Bible of things that are utterly crazy when we think about the Bible stories that talk about the power that Jesus has over the world and the way he's able to manipulate it and change it. And you know, in addition to all the miracles of like multiplying bread and fish and bringing Lazarus back from the dead, resurrecting himself even in the crucifixion and everything, that not only that, but he's a guy who can transport through the wall and read the thoughts of your heart and even speak to you as if you're like Bluetooth to Jesus, and he can just like send stuff through the headphone at like a moment's notice. It's crazy. It's literally crazy. And you know, I think this whole experience of trying to figure out the fabric of the universe over the last couple episodes has really helped me to see the world in a way I never have before. And there's some amazing stuff that I want to share with. But effectively what Jesus is doing is he's sending brain waves into your brain. But if you looked at it from a technological perspective, you would consider that to be like counterfeit or evil, right? Like if the government was sending waves into your brain that you heard stuff, like all of a sudden Trump's speech, you can't turn it off. Like when the president's speaking, it beams directly in your brain. You'd be like, that's the worst thing you've ever heard. It's like the worst nightmare of anyone's life that you can't turn it off. Trump's like, excuse me, is this thing on? It's like, all right, frankly, there's going to be an incredible rollout. Beautiful, beautiful new technology. Beautiful ballroom. Anyway, that would be terrible, right? And if that was happening on some technological basis, it'd be really scary. It'd be really 1984. It'd be like Terminator, Skynet dystopia of all time. But, Jesus has that kind of authority. We talk about fear God who can kill the body and soul. And we talk about that concept of God's ultimate power. Well, Jesus is like God's archon of ultimate power in the world. So we shouldn't be surprised that Jesus can do incredible things. And of course, we should never forget that this is the King and Savior and hero and sacrificial lamb who told us that we would do greater things than these. So never forget that it's not impossible to us through Christ, that he is the gateway, the way, the truth, and the life. So as far as transcendence and transfiguration and transhumanism goes, if you really want to get to some higher level stuff, you got to get to the higher level dude. Stop trusting Bill Nye and other weird, mentally ill New Agers. You see what I mean? All right, so that's spiritual authority there Jesus has, to be able to telepathically communicate, to time travel, to go through the wall. Like literally, the doors are locked and he just like, zoom, he's just in there. Come on, man. But it's just the way things are. So think about this. Like, I think we all can recall a time in our lives before we were saved. Maybe not everybody, but it's very common for those of us who were in our dark times in our life, lost in the ways of the world, that we were living in kind of what many would call like a bad vibe, right? You hear people talk about like, man, that's a bad vibe. But we don't really think about what that means, right? It's like hippie language that made its way into the mainstream. But when we really talk about vibes, we're talking about energy, frequency, and vibration. And these are things we've talked about in great length over the last 2 episodes leading up to this one. That the world is comprised of like a spiritual framework and a physiological dimension constructed on top of it. And what's truly sand and pliable is the physical world, where the spiritual world is what's eternal and what's actually stone and grounded and seated on the throne of the Lord. You know what I mean? Like the universe is solid outside of this place. And what we have is a world that's in contention between forces of good and evil, between people following light and people following darkness. And all of that is not to say that God is in any way in actual competition with anyone, but it's we who are in competition with ourselves to escape the darkness of sin and to embrace the free gift of salvation and to choose kingdom and to be part of that. So with all that being said, that's the spiritual understanding of the world, this old war for humanity and the spiritual state of humanity. But when we look at the world from a metaphysical sense, we have an ability to recognize that the things taking place are real. Even if the world is this pliable foundation of sand set to change and for the old order to pass away for a new heaven and a new earth, we have to understand that all of these things are taking place within the confines of the world God built. We were calling it in the earliest episode, we were calling it God's garage, right? And like we get out of a box that we grew up in of weird ideas and beliefs. And now we're still living within the bigger confines of God's version of reality. And we may not know where all those boundaries are, but they do exist. And so the goal is to try to explore those boundaries and understand what's going on. So the entire world is made of light and sound, energy, frequency, and vibration. And that's something that we've talked about at length before, but I want to actually give you guys an example, and I created a little teaching guide to share with you guys today. So let's take a look at that really quick. So what we have here, trying to not get lost in the weeds here. We got a lot of stuff on this page, but so basically starting here, what we have is this is a picket fence, okay? It's nothing too crazy. But understand that the picket fence represents the world, okay, the spectrum of reality. And when we look at the world, we see the world through a one-plank version of reality. When we look at what they call the visible spectrum of light radiation, what we are able to see exists only in this small band, okay? So outside of what we can visibly see with our eyes are all of these other types of radiation that are all just different forms of light that, again, are outside the visible spectrum. So when we compare that visible spectrum to our picket fence, we recognize that there are other bands of invisible light that still exist, even though they're outside of what we can see. Now, what's also really important to notice about this is that when you look at a guide like this, you'll regularly see the bandwidth described as higher pitch to the left and lower pitch to the right. And the reason why we use those terms is because the frequency, the number of times in which the ray passes, is higher in the higher frequency, whereas it's lower. So the way that you would describe it is you get less hits in any given interval in a low frequency than you get in a high frequency. Okay, that's basically the simplest way it's described. And you'll often see these visible spectrums given with the high frequencies on the left and the low frequencies on the right. But I have a history in music production, and I've always thought that usually the orientation on a graphic equalization is from left to right. And so what we would actually need to see is that guide was actually flipped over, reversed, so that it would correlate with the way that music and sound is demonstrated. So this is what we call the sound frequency, audio spectrum. And you'll notice it's very similar in that we use the same colors and the same sort of low end and high end bandwidth frequency radius, or the word's escaping me. The range is what I was looking for. And so when we flip this commonly reversed light spectrum depiction over, it now is an exact match to the way that we describe sound frequency. Red being low frequencies, all the way to the yellow, green, blue, purple, violet, etc. And that is effectively a direct comparison showing that sound and light work in the same way. They're measured in the same way. They follow the same colorful representations. And the reason why I thought it was important that we flipped over our visible light spectrum field here is because color is displayed in nature in that same low to high field demonstration. And you'll see that here in the conventional gradient colors of the rainbow. Now, they call this Roy G. Biv. It's an acronym for the sequence of hues commonly described as making up a rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. There are several mnemonics that can be used for remembering this color sequence, such as Roy G. Biv, or sentences such as Richard of York gave battle in vain, etc., etc. A lot of times with modern like gaming hardware and stuff, you'll see it called RGB, which is just the way of essentially saying it has the ability to have rainbow lights flying out of it, which is just where we're at in this thing. All right, so it says in the visible spectrum, red is on the long wavelength, low energy end, meaning on the right side when arranged by increasing energy, Roy G. Biv. But it's the starting point for longest waves, while violet, shortest waves, is opposite at the high energy end, making red the left end if you plot increasing wavelength and decreasing energy from left to right. So if you see a diagram with red on the far left and violet on the far right, that is correct for a physical wavelength / energy plot. So it is correct to display it red to blue to violet, etc. So this is so common that it's displayed this way, and I can't help but feel like there is a reason that they don't show it the same as the soundboard, and I think that the reason they do that is because they don't want you to so quickly make the correlation that light and sound are the same thing. We're talking about energy as it manifests in different forms, either visible or invisible light, or audible or inaudible sound. Now, there are audio ranges here, as demonstrated here, that includes frequencies that are invisible. You cannot hear them. So the threshold of hearing and the threshold of the sound pressure here, you can feel sound that has this high of pressure. If you've ever been to like a loud concert, you can feel the bass making your organs wiggle around. It's very insane. And the same, the threshold of hearing, where it doesn't take a whole lot of volume for the audio to be heard in certain ranges. Now, you'll see as it dips down, this range here between 2 and 5K is the most hot part of people's audio capacity. This kind of between 500 and just over, this is where all music is. Like almost all the radio music is in. Obviously the volume matters depending on what you're listening to it on. But the point is there are dead spots. If the threshold is low for the actual frequency, and the sound pressure is low for the actual audio, it doesn't create enough vibration for you to feel the earthquake, right? If the pressure is really high and the audio range is very low, it's pure vibration, chainsaw, earthquake. And the idea is as the pitch gets higher, it doesn't require as much volume for your ears to be able to pick it up. But there are obviously blind spots, or I guess in this way, deaf spots, you would call it. And the point is that we exist in a world that has both visible and invisible light and audible and inaudible sound. And the world is made of these bands of energy as they, manipulate the realm around us. The best way I would describe it is to say that God made the world, and when God made the world, he created a resonance that has ever since then served as the initial source of all energy in the universe, the Big Bang, so to speak, which is that when God spoke the world into existence, energy began to exist for the first time, matter and energy. In the same way that they describe that, right, as like matter and space and time, we have energy, frequency, and vibration, which is the more accurate representation of the state of the world that we live in. So once more, just to look over the guide once more. What we have is a very big world, and we can only perceive just a little bit of it, that little rainbow on the fence. So keeping that in mind, there are some other interesting things that have to do with the idea of the visible and invisible light spectrum, and it's very interesting. I don't know how well you guys are familiar with what they call noble gases, but the noble gases, as demonstrated in this video, each have their own color, and they each actually represent one of these 7 colors of the rainbow. And there are actually 7 noble gases that create the atmosphere that we live in. So essentially what we have is the firmament of the world contains these gases, and these gases create the color of the visible spectrum. It's an incredible concept. It ties kind of into what we're looking at in the thumbnail of the video, right? Where it's kind of like, oh, it's the perfect device, and you've got the tubes with the spectrum colors and the way they're being measured on the graph here. And of course, literally, it's just a kind of an artistic representation, but yet it still speaks to the reality of things, which is, like we said, we have a visible light spectrum and an audible spectrum of sound. And not only are those visible in the colors of the rainbow, but there are actual physical gases, and it's just interesting that they call them noble gases, right? When we're talking about the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of God, and God's holiness and kingliness creating the universe, and that there's actual, I guess you could say, physical proof that the manifestation of God's power is real in the world, and you can even see it in what they call, of all names, the noble gases. So it's really cool. There's this concept that in the Bible it says God dwells in unapproachable light, and I think you guys have probably heard that before, and I've always thought that meant that if you tried to get close to God, it would vaporize you. And I think that's probably fair to say. But the reason why that exists is because God is such a pure source of energy, and our world is an enclosed construct, right? We have a Roy G. Biv of available spectrum that we exist within, and God exists well beyond that spectrum. And so for us to become exposed to energy, frequency, vibration of such a magnitude, such a high pressure level that's also across such a wide bandwidth of exposure, we would basically be vaporized by holy fire. It's such an incredible thing to consider. And so God actually does this amazing thing, and you see this illustrated in various different art pieces and stuff, but I have one here that you guys would probably recognize, and it's 1 Timothy 6:16. It says, God dwells in unapproachable light. And I look at this prism here, and the first thing that comes to my mind is, here is the unapproachable white, pure light of God. And then here is the visible spectrum where we live. We live in here on the other side of what? A giant crystal prism. And what would we call the crystal prism containing what creates the separation between the unapproachable light and the visible spectrum in which we live? The firmament, dude. And I thought, that is so amazing. God had the foresight to construct a realm that not only would be beneficial to us and prosperous to us in our time of unity with God, but that would also protect us in the inevitable fall. That when humanity became cursed with sin and iniquity, we would not instantly be destroyed by God's presence. That he shielded us through the manifestation of this incredible thing we call the firmament, that not only separates waters above and waters below, creating the barriers of the physical, visible realm that we live in, it also serves as a filter of God's pure energy and light so that we don't die. It's so cool, man. I'm sorry. I just think it's the coolest thing ever. So crazy. Mind officially blown. Okay, so we've established that the world is comprised of visible and invisible frequencies, audible and inaudible frequencies, layers of light and sound. Some we can see, some we cannot see. And it is believed that in the old world, people were living under the influence of the light of God, right? We talk about in the I guess you could say little season, last season, eschatological worldview of the idea that Jesus Christ has already returned and reigned with his saints on the earth. And Jesus Christ being the light of the world, this is an example of dwelling in that light that is generally an unapproachable light. But we're talking about that the lens, right? That Jesus Christ becomes that sort of arbiter between us and the unapproachable light of God, to where we can actually enter the kingdom because he is in a way that same kind of prism of shield. He makes this unapproachable, impassable, impossible kingdom accessible to us in the same way that God has constructed a realm that's working for us, that's working with us, so that we can grow out of this failed position that we've fallen into. It's quite incredible. And I have a Bible verse here. It's going to be, Daniel 7:13 through 15. It says, we'll pull it up. I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven, and came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. And there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all people, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed. Anyway, so it refers to the continuity of Christ's kingdom. And let me get a big drink real quick. And that is because what Christ has done in creating his kingdom is create a link between the source energy of the universe, that white, unapproachable light, and us. I joke all the time about how Catholicism's a joke. We don't need a pope. Jesus Christ is the true pope. And if we understood what that really meant, I think we would understand that not just spiritually is Jesus the narrow gate, the way, the truth, and the life, but he's also physically, like metaphysically, being a conduit of God's energy into the realm that we could not get without him. When Adam and Eve had fallen from grace and fallen from dominion in the world, right? It talks about Christ's dominion. It's an everlasting dominion. It doesn't pass away. The dominion of Adam and Eve fell due to their sin. But Jesus has created one which cannot be taken away. And so even though we live today in a world with all kinds of trouble and sin and problems, his kingdom doesn't pass away, as in his doorway, his gateway is always open to his people. And that doorway allows that light of God to enter into your life and be utterly transformative, not just to the way that you think, but to the way that you live around you. And you'll start finding examples in your life that really prove to you that you're basking in a new light. You know, they talk about coming out of darkness and entering into that light. I really believe that when we look at this, it's not just light as in there was darkness and now there's a lamp in the room. We're talking about an access to a new type of energy wavelength that may not even be visible. How do we know that you're not literally basking in a beam of light from God in heaven that you just don't see because our eyes aren't tuned to see it? How do we know there's not a deep state monocle and they can see every light spectrum and you're like glowing purple or something? You know what I mean? Like, how do we know that? We don't even know what's going on here. Every Christian on earth could be glowing a certain color, and that's why demons hate you so much. I know that sounds crazy. I'm just spitballing here, okay? I'm just saying. Oh, man. So you guys know, like, since we're all out here, millennial kingdom of Christ and 70 AD and all that. And you have to think things were pretty wild during that time. It's really widely theorized and even I think believed by a lot of people in this kind of field of research that there were these buildings that were designed to amplify the healing and resonant frequencies that were good for mankind in the world. So we talk about the world being made of frequency. There is a natural way things are, the frequencies that exist in nature, the healthy, regular bands of energy, so to speak. And then there are some that are chaotic, discordant. And when you look at music, when we call harmony two musical notes, right? We're talking about sound, which is the same as light. Certain sounds go well together because they harmonize with one another. Well, that is also true of light. Energy has a way of harmonizing with the correct frequencies and creating discord, which is what they call chaos or the clashing sound of, like, you ever play the two wrong notes next to each other on the piano and it's like, jong! Like, that is discord. So as you can see, when we describe peace as harmony and chaos as discord, we're describing manifestations of energy fields in the world that correlate exactly to the type of experience we're having. It's just like what I said earlier when we talked about vibes, right? You got a bad vibe, man. Because there is a negative field of energy either being created or coming into fruition on you, through you, around you. And that's why you feel it. I think everybody can talk about how over the last week has been crazy. Almost everyone I know has mentioned that the last week was really hard. And I personally had a really terrible time over the last 5 or 7 days. And I'm sure it has to do with all the crazy stuff going on in the world and everything. But really, when there's this overpowering darkness and you don't know where it's coming from, consider the fact that there's invisible frequencies about that you cannot see or hear, but they're still actually there. And they just might be evil, negative, or in other words, discordant frequencies that are harshing the harmony of your mellow and your vibe, So just keep that in mind. So it's literally crazy. I mean, these ideas about the cathedrals being amplifiers, we have all kinds of pictures. Oh, shoot. Did I really just do that? I just accidentally closed my window. One sec. I think you could pull it back up. Yeah, there we go. I lost my window. Where was that? Okay, good enough. All right, I have some images I'll show you guys. This one's kind of small. I'm not sure why it's so small. Okay, can I not zoom in on it now? It's so little I can't zoom in. What's the deal, bro? It was letting me zoom in earlier. I can open it in a new tab, maybe. No way. That's weird. I was literally zooming in on images a second ago. Oh, there's one. Okay. This is where we get the idea, right? You look at cathedral windows and you see these kinds of images. I don't know why the cathedral window picture won't pop up. Here we go. Here's a good example, right? I'm not the first one to bring this idea up. I don't get any credit for this, and I'm not I don't know who does. I mean, it's just an observation, right? We see these windows. We talked about it, how it's a snowflake of a certain tune. I think that's the terminology I used. We understand that there was likely a period where these didn't even have glass in them. These were probably a highly likely conjecture, highly likely to be massive energy transfer stations. And you could call it an acoustic, like a speaker, or an emitter of some kind. Think about it like nature's Wi-Fi. You know what I mean? And there are frequencies that manifest as certain imagery. I mean, look at these. These are cymatic notes, that when certain notes are struck, they create certain images. So there's the correlation of the light and sound, and I can assume that if they were colorful, they would be many colors because of the frequencies within the notes that create the different colors in the visible spectrum, including also likely invisible spectrum. We can't see any of this. A sound, notes go by, but you don't see these bubbles floating through the atmosphere, even though they are. That's what's so amazing about it. If you had the vision of like an ascended master, you could see these bubbles moving through the universe when anything was happening. The whole world would be like a crazy kaleidoscopic DMT trip, and it would be insane. And I think that's probably why when people take these substances and have these experiences, the reason why you're seeing the world looking crazy and kaleidoscopic, euphoric, crazy is because it actually looks like that to an extent. And when you're in like a kind of a lowly, fallen, carnal human brain, none of this transfers into anything. This is like a million alphabets in 1,000 languages flying past your face at once. You're not reading that. And it's because we're so lowly in our vibration. Our state of existence is, pathetic compared to, ascendance and righteousness. So we're kind of, operating and like looking through a little tiny pinhole at reality. And that's just something we have to accept. That's kind of the crux of why we need Christ. Now, not just because we can't see anything, but because we don't understand the length and breadth and depth of the complexity of the universe. And without a guide like Jesus to take us down that narrow path, we'll easily get lost and have no idea what our real purpose is or what we're supposed to do. And that's evidenced by the state of the world we're living in now. We talk about looking into the abyss, and the abyss looks back. Why is there even an abyss? Because it's messed up, right? Things are in trouble out there and desperately in need of help and reconstitution and restoration, most of all. So, again, it's believed that during the millennial kingdom, they used those crazy buildings to generate more than just a beautiful piece of infrastructure, but a way to pass that holy energy down onto the people who had not yet come to know the Lord or had not yet entered into some kind of a transfigured state. So you have Jesus Christ and his resurrected saints, all of these insane guys who can like teleport around and manifest bread and gold, but the world is still full of people who have yet to reach that kind of transcendence through the Holy Spirit or coming to know faith in Christ yet. And so how better do you get those people introduced to the kingdom than by giving them not just stories about it or things to look at, but let them come to the presence of this place and feel the difference. When you enter into God's field, when you feel his resonance, when you enter into the light of God. Jesus Christ, the way, the truth, the life. That is how you enter into a new field, a new vibe, you know what I'm saying? And that vibe was available to people who didn't have it yet. And so they could get like a taste. What's it like to live in that kingdom? Wow, everybody is healthy. We don't even need bathrooms like the Palace of Versailles. You know what I mean? And that kind of an experience, that kind of an example is exactly what Jesus Christ meant to do when he kept speaking about the coming of his kingdom. He came to show people what it was like to be the perfect sacrificial lamb, to give everything he had, because every other king you've ever seen takes from everybody else and builds himself up treasures on the earth. No, the true king of earth comes to give everything, including his own precious life. That is how he demonstrates his reason for authority, and then when he comes back, he demonstrates manifestation of his authority, destroying the temple, crushing Rome, the world's power. He took over the earth, and that's because he had the authority to, and he had already proven that he had the merit to be in charge. So the great self-sacrificial King Jesus lives by example, by laying down his life in love, loving his friends, loving his enemies, loving his neighbors, and being the ultimate example for us to follow after when we pick up our cross. Now we know what that looks like. That is exactly what the kingdom would be under the ideal control of righteous people. How can we make the world better for even the people who hate us? Because we're not asking permission to make the world a better place, right? CDM. They'll come to know the honor and glory of the king when they eat his food for free. That's what feeding 5,000 people is all about. Because when they realize that there's a world that takes your money and taxes you to death and throws you in prison and corrupts the minds of your children and steals your energy and steals your life and life force and does all these horrible things to you, and then you look over across the hill, across the valley, and there's this kingdom of harmony where every day you swear you're 6 months younger until you're 25 for the rest of your life because your cellular regeneration rate exceeds the cellular decay rate and you essentially live forever. Now, I'm not saying that I know that for a fact. I'm just saying imagine that for a moment. And that's a very common principle, theory among the millennial kingdom belief system stuff is that these buildings essentially generated a positive radiant field that could even have just been simply enough to scare demons away. You know, perhaps the resonant, beautiful, natural occurring frequencies of God's construction that he made with his voice, perhaps the demons, the parasites, the virus in the machine, perhaps it doesn't like those frequencies and it repels dark forces at the very least. I don't know. It's all a theory, but imagine that, right? Like a literal demon shield made of positive resonant energy. What would the world be like if there weren't demons whispering into the minds and hearts of men? Very interesting, especially if it coincided with 1,000 years in which the devil was imprisoned in the bottomless pit. It would be a pretty fine time, if you ask me. Anyway, so energy can also affect your health. We have to speedball through this, guys. Do we got the salamander? We do. Get ready to watch something disturbing. Okay, salamander.
We're going to have a look at the way in which an amputated limb grows over the course of about 90 days in a salamander. That's a time-lapse movie, watching that thing grow. And now we're going to see what's really going on. Here's the salamander, and it's got a completely new limb. It looks perfect. It has inside bone, it has nerves and muscle, and it can even wiggle. In fact, it's perfect. Now we're going to cut it off. Here's the good news. It grows back. So don't be too scared. First, wound healing. Did you see that wound heal? Now we're watching what the nuke can do that we cannot do. Cells are streaming out of the surrounding tissues into the area of the wound and forming what we call a blastema, which is a group of undifferentiated cells that are in fact really just like stem cells. And they're multicolored because they come from skin, from muscle, and even from cartilage. And these have a miraculous memory of what they used to be and are able to form a perfectly functional limb.
Now, I scoured the internet, and I promise you I did my best. I used to be in possession of a document. There was a study done on these and like the little axolotl salamander things. And they talked about, it was a series about the electrical body signals of these salamanders. And it says that at the point of injury, the salamander receives an incredible dip in its natural electrical current. But when the healing process begins, there's all of a sudden a spike of its own naturally occurring electromagnetic field. And that giant boost of electromagnetic energy all functions right down to where the missing limb is. And that stimulates the cellular growth to regrow its limb. Now, what's important to know about that is that it's not some kind of magic memory, like I don't know why she was missing the point. It's DNA. The salamander has a DNA that tells its body to reproduce the cells in that capacity, that order, and that quantity to recreate the missing limb that was cut off. Now, this is a natural process for the salamander, but we look at it as some kind of a mystery that we don't understand. What's happening is a concentration of electromagnetic fields that are tuned with this salamander's frequency that occur naturally to allow it to regrow its limbs. Now, there was all kinds of implications about how this could be applied to humans, but nobody has ever really tried it. So the theory is that in order to make humans regrow limbs using their own DNA structure, it only takes the right kind of frequency. Now, when we experience times in the Bible of Holy Spirit healing and being healed by the power of God, you have to imagine this as very whimsical, magical, and spiritual. And I like to use the word magical because the root word of magic is magnetism. So when Jesus tells you to pick up your mat and walk, when he tells a leper to be healed or Lazarus to come out, this is not a man asking the world to do anything. This is a man with the authority to command the realm to be different. And so if you're dead, your cell structure, the energy in your body, the placement of your soul, all of these things are, in our minds, ethereal, absent, and impossible to comprehend. But Jesus knows how to tell these mechanical things to reconstitute and become what it is that you're experiencing in the physical world. If there's duplicated bread and fish or gold in the belly of a fish, it's because God has changed the fabric of the world by the authority of his command. And so in the same way, this salamander has in some way a little bit of authority by God's virtue of the blessing he put on this little creature, or because of the frequency that this little creature operates at. It is still able to regenerate. But a human being, unfortunately, cannot. And so you lose a limb and it's tragic, and you know, maybe you could get a robot arm someday. But it's not the same as imagining having that kind of magic, right? The authority to tell the electromagnetic fields of your body to regrow your limb like it grows hair and fingernails. It's possible because it already happened once. You already grew from a little fetus into a full-grown human being at some point. So the fabric, the building blocks are within you. The question is, where is the stimulus coming from? When you're first born into the world, you have that. But you reach a point of hormonal cutoff and electromagnetic end because you're no longer stimulated by that forward energy. And you begin to wane from your growth, and you begin to decay and age. Now, it is my theory that those buildings helped with the process, if not fully capacitated the process of not only maximum cellular regeneration, but even possibly the ability to heal incredible wounds, like regrow your arm. Is that a fact? I don't know, but it's very interesting and very possible. So we have one other thing I want to show you guys, which is pertaining to ancient sound healing. Let's see. So, sound-based healing in the old world was a universal practice. With ancient cultures like Egyptians using chants in resonant chambers, Greeks employing lyres for mental clarity, indigenous Australians using the didgeridoo for millennia, and Vedic traditions chanting mantras to balance chakras, all recognizing sound's power to align mind, body, and spirit through vibrations, music, and resonance for therapeutic purposes. So there's all kinds of examples of these, ancient traditions singing and using music and resonance in what was believed to be healing purposes. Now, again, I can't speak to the validity of it, but it's certainly not something I came up with tonight while I was talking about all of this. And then I have one more, light-based healing as well. Healing light refers to using, go away, little backdrop. Healing light refers to using different light wavelengths like red, blue for physical therapy, photobiomodulation, spiritual practices, meditation, prayer, or color therapy, chromotherapy, to promote relaxation, mood, and wellness through though scientific backing varies with medical light therapies proven, and energy/color work often complementary. It can involve specific devices or guided imagery to channel positive energy for mind-body healing. Okay, so there's a bunch of examples here. Red and arent for red, used for anti-aging, inflammation, muscle pain, and deeper tissue healing. Blue light targets acne. Oil control has antimicrobial effects for wound healing. Now, there is some truth to the fact that, obviously we know that ultraviolet light is is antibacterial. You can't have certain cultures just sitting on the sidewalk in the sunlight. It destroys quite a bit of bacteria and viral particles, just UV light. So, that's not necessarily, it's one of those kind of in the middle, right? It depends on the application. But the idea of using types of energy like sound or light to heal people it's essentially a tale as old as time. It's certainly not something new or something I came up with today. So we believe that the world is light and sound based. Light and sound affects the realm. It's what the realm is comprised of, and it exists in ways that we can and cannot see it. And so there are other examples of this in the world that's actually really bad for people. And of course, without going too far into the weeds, obviously there's examples of this that we can look at, and we will look at them. But I just think it's funny. I don't know if you guys have seen them. There have been these advertisements for now a couple of years now, and it's really started to blow up. Is this company that's called Haven, and they make, the typical beanie to protect your head from the radio frequencies. But they have a whole line of products, right? Hoodie. They have underwear. They're like protect your gems. They're like fertility, testosterone, and of course they're trying to sell a product, right? But when I look at that and I say, let's say maybe they're not lying, or maybe they're not trying to take advantage of something and make money. Of course they're trying to make money. The hats are like $70. That thing better be a dang strong tinfoil hat, my friend. A $70 pair of underwear, that's a little bit above my budget. I feel like $70 is more than I spent on underwear in 10 years. Anyway, so obviously that's a little bit wild. But let's just say maybe there's some truth to what they're saying. If there's an implication that, radio frequencies are frying your balls and ruining your fertility rate and crushing your testosterone, it's no wonder everybody's fat and sad. You're being electrocuted, or you're being microwaved. Your balls are in the microwave, bro. So maybe that's true. Maybe that really is. If so, why don't you, it's not sponsored. Maybe someday the channel will be big. Get yourself a pair of Haven Boxers /con man. You know who's, I'm just joking. Okay, anyway, let's see. I got some crazy ones. I got another crazy one for you. Let's see. This one's going to be a real problem. So I have a document here. It's a compilation of stuff. It's the correlation of the rollout of new technology and disease. And what we have is basically a list of time and time again where you have, for instance, the Spanish flu, 1918. In 1918, the key wireless technology implemented and rapidly advanced was wireless telegraphy, radio. Telegraphy, specifically for battlefield communication using early continuous wave radio sets. So think about it, continuous wave. In 1918, they started continuously waving everybody with radiation, continuous wave. And it just so happened to be the same year as the Spanish flu, 1918. Very interesting. Well, in 1915, the Asian flu, H2N2, correlates with, in 1957, two notable developments in wireless technology were the first demonstrations of a wireless microphone system and the mass production of the Sony TR-63 transistor radio. Key wireless developments in 1957 include the wireless microphone system Sennheiser, in collaboration with the German broadcaster Norddeutscher Rundfunk. Okay. Demonstrated one of the earliest wireless microphone systems in 1957. It began marketed commercially in 1958 under the name Microport. Separately, American engineer Raymond A. Littke invented and filed a patent for a wireless microphone for television, radio, classroom, and instruction the same year. So, for some reason, everyone discovered wireless microphones in 1957 separately from each other, Germans and Americans and everyone else, all mass-producing at the same time, and having an absolute direct correlation to the timeline in which the H2N2 virus is happening to the people. And this document here, I mean, like, guys, this goes on and on. Sputnik launch, Hong Kong flu. Anyway, this whole thing, this document is an incredible collection of these, and I will make it available for free on patreon.com/thecultofcon later on. So if you guys want to go over there, it'll be free for all the members over there. If you're interested in looking at this collection that Wendy helped me put together, thank you very much, Wendy. And since we're shouting out to Wendy, we'll go ahead. It's kind of a weird thing. It didn't awooga, just oohed. One more. Not sure what happened there. But yeah, that's a wild one. Okay, so anyway, we've got this great example here. I'll make that available for you guys in there later on as well. So you guys can dig into the meat and potatoes of that. But basically what we're saying is there is a substantial amount of evidence that points to the idea that radio frequencies are probably bad for you, not just because there's people selling $77 beanies or whatever, or whatever, $50 pairs of boxer shorts, but literally because there's like a direct correlation time and time again, where every time there's a massive pandemic, there just so happens to be the mass rollout of some new continuous wave technology. So you can't make it up. The continuous wave. I feel like I wake up sometimes under a continuous wave of BS, and like I feel like I'm gonna gouge my eyes out and run into the forest like a madman. like this place. Get me out of here, man. It's true. So we talked about manipulation of the realm through spiritual authority. Healthy resonant frequencies from cathedrals and millennial kingdom infrastructure. So we have this understanding that the fields are there, they exist, and you can manipulate them. We experience it all the time as a result of these potentially harmful frequencies. 5G. And so now we have this dangerous frequency-emitting counterfeit to the Millennial Kingdom buildings, right? They used to have the cathedrals outputting this potentially great natural resonance that was potentially healing, that might have been an anti-demon shield. Maybe it just made nice music that made it nice to walk around those beautiful towns. Like, I can handle some nice little church bells and some beautiful, like, chanting coming out of the cathedral. What a wonderful time and place it would be, like Paris, like 25 years ago. You know, not now, but like 25 years ago or so. Yeah. Anyway, so that's that. So instead of this field being emitted for the purpose of God's good for the world, you have now this counterfeit that we call, Wi-Fi, 5G, the telecommunication network of the world today. And there's actually some incredible implications there as well. So I have some documents, and I'll attach these to the other thing. We'll make it all one big package for the Patreon group. So if you guys are interested in going over there, this is the commonalities between COVID-19 and radiation injury. Now, I know I'm not supposed to talk about this, but that's what the cutting edge of conspiracy research is all about, essentially risking total nuke. I at this point think that the channel stuff it's rigged anyway, right? Like, there's so many good channels who just cannot gain subs, and it's because they're deciding who gets to be the heads of whatever group, and newsflash, we ain't it. So, commonalities between COVID-19 and radiation injury. Again, like I said, I'll make this available with the package with the other evidences, but as the multi-systemic components of COVID-19 emerge, parallel etiologies can be drawn between SARS-CoV-2 infection and radiation injuries. While some SARS-CoV-2 infected individuals present as asymptomatic, others exhibit mild symptoms that may include fever, cough, chills, and unusual symptoms like loss of taste and smell and the reddening of the extremities. My brother became lactose intolerant. Very weird. No, we did not get the thing either. So they did something that warped his entire DNA. And we're in it still, man. It's still going on. Anyway, so still others alarm healthcare providers with extreme and rapid onset of high-risk indicators of mortality that include acute respiratory distress syndrome, multi-organ hypercoagulation, hypoxia, and cardiovascular damage. Researchers are quickly refocusing their science to address this enigmatic virus that seems to unveil itself in new ways without discrimination. As investigators begin to identify early markers of disease, identification of common threads with other pathologies may provide some clues. Interesting. Years of research in the field of radiation biology documents the complex multi-organ nature of another disease state that occurs after exposure to high doses of radiation, the acute radiation syndrome, ARS. Inflammation is a key player in COVID-19 and ARS and drives the multi-system damage that dramatically alters biological homeostasis. Both conditions indicate a cytokine storm, with similar pro-inflammatory molecules increased and other anti-inflammatory molecules decreased. These changes manifest in a variety of ways, with a demonstrably higher health impact in patients having underlying medical conditions. The potentially dramatic human impact of ARS has guided the science that has identified many biomarkers of radiation exposure, established medical management strategies for ARS, and led to the development of medical countermeasures for use in the event of a radiation public health emergency. These efforts can now be leveraged to help elucidate mechanisms of action of COVID-19 injuries. Furthermore, this intersection between COVID-19 and acute radiation syndrome may actually point to approaches that could accelerate the discovery of treatments for both. Wow. So there's a whole lot to read here, and I even have another article that speaks about this, that talks about the like a kind of a debunking of the conspiracy theories, so you can get the other side here. This is someone who noticed how this was trending on the internet. People were talking about it, including lots of doctors and important people who brought it up. And this is taken from the perspective of a naysayer and a doubter. So if you want to be a what do you want to call it, a detractor, you can read through this and collect a lot of valuable information that was true and decide for yourself. But I will make both of these documents also available for you guys in the Patreon, so you can check them out. And again, they'll be free. It's not like it's any of my stuff. Putting it together is that's what we do. So that's that. So effectively what it says is that COVID is radiation sickness. Did you get a 9-day crippling fever where your bones were on fire? You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying, I was at like probably close to, not today, but at the time, the healthiest I'd ever been in my life. And I just one day went to work and thought, I feel kind of weird today. And then I was on the shuttle bus, like working, and I just was like, I like crashed out. And for 9 days, I couldn't get off the couch. Like, I almost died. I was like laying there sweaty, but freezing cold. Like, what was that? Look, I'm not here to tell anybody what is or isn't. I'm just saying the evidence is out there that something happened and people reacted negatively to it. And it just so happens to be, like with all these other examples, correlating with the rollout of a massive amount of new 5G Wi-Fi infrastructure. In fact, our second guide actually discusses it here. in this section, it talks about how people were so afraid of this that they actually tore down a number of brand new Wi-Fi emitting towers in the United Kingdom. They said like no less than 20 towers were torn down. I'd have to reread the article, and it'll be available for you guys. But they're basically saying, people went crazy and started attacking 5G and stuff. And it's like, yeah, they're so crazy, those unhinged conspiracy theorists and those terrorists that are trying to tear down the emitters of such a perfectly benign frequency. Anyway, moving forward here, there's a Life Science article here that just had a really nice art piece I wanted to share with you guys that speaks to what we were talking about earlier in terms of the visible light spectrum. And so what we have here is what they call the electromagnetic spectrum, which basically is the same thing, right? It's a combination of both sound and light. They call it electromagnetic. And in this example right here, we're basically looking at different types of radiation, wavelengths of different intensities, and we talk about, look, this is what we can see. But just outside of what you can see is light that can see through you. Super crazy. Gamma rays, which is like, this will kill you, right? Very close to we can see through you and then we can kill you. But just on the other side of we can see you and kill you, here's where you are, and here's your balls being microwaved, and also outside your house. So it's like you're sandwiched in between two fields of radiation that inherently wouldn't do anything to you, right? We're talking about in God's green earth, there aren't microwaves, radio towers, x-ray machines, or nuclear power plants. None of that is natural. So you should be here and here just fine. But we exist in a world where they have constructed infrastructure on either side of you that is not necessarily good for you, and has the potential to manipulate you and mess with you in a way that you can't see or hear. An undetectable manipulation of your natural vibration and frequency from the effect of machines and infrastructure that is affecting you in a way you cannot necessarily even identify. That is crazy to me. Okay? And so every time they release a new powered system, it seems that people get sick. So when we're looking at those correlations over time, it seems to me that what's actually happening is that people are having to adapt to the new frequencies they're being exposed to that are different than the ones that you have generationally lived with in nature since the dawn of time. You're talking about fields that do not exist in nature, and your body has to adapt to it. And I think that we're all different enough that people react differently when they turn the machine on. And some people get really sick. Some people get a little sick. And some people are stuck to the couch for 9 days despite being perfectly healthy. And so there's no denying the reality of the impact. Every time they release a new system, people freak out and crash out. And it's totally normal, and it's not necessarily a good thing, but it makes sense why it's happening. People have to adjust to the sequences of the new signatures, new frequencies, and the new fields that they're being exposed to en masse from all kinds of things. I mean, I have multiple phones, so it's like I at any time have 2 radiation antennas, one in each pocket. It's like, if it weren't for the authority of God, right? If it weren't for the fact that I am under his covering, I'd probably be like microwaved. I would be a ghoul. My eyes would fall out, and it'd be like a literal Fallout ghoul right now. But I'm pretty certain, the way I see it is I don't worry about any of this. I fear none of these things because it's like God's got me. I'm not affected by radiation. God doesn't give the authority to affect me. And so I don't allow this stuff to even, I'll go stand right next to the power plant. You know what I mean? If God says, go walk over to the elephant's foot and take a bite, I just be like, okay. Lion's Den, power plant, cell phone, I don't care about that. I'm just telling you what it is. You know what I mean? If you're worried about it and you have some fear, you've got something to sort out with the Lord. If I get fried and get cancer, that's like a shortcut out of here, shortcut to the kingdom. Sorry. Anyway, I want to touch back on another thing because we're really starting to get to the meat and potatoes here, and I've got some stuff that's just super impactful that really is I guess you could say maybe the getting close to the nail in the coffin on this stuff. Okay, so last week when we were looking at episode 32, we talked about the idea of like PDF readers and how they developed the ability over time for pictures to be, or documents to be viewed as an image, and that they've developed basically what we eventually learned was called computer vision, or like an ability for the computer to read an image or a document or like a meme and be able to find letters and words that are written there in many, many various fonts and ways. And so this was something that we know is useful in like Adobe Reader for like being able to edit documents or like send your tax return or whatever it is you're trying to do. But we also know that there was a period of time where during the 2020 freakout, Meta, specifically Facebook, was using artificial intelligence and machine learning to detect and remove COVID-19 misinformation, including content within images. But the term photo reading software is not a standard industry term, it's likely a misinterpretation. So I had searched up, I was like, is there such a thing as photo reading that Meta was using to like scan for misinformation? And it corrected me by saying, no, it's not a photo reading technology, but the AI technology can analyze images to identify objects and text within them using optical character recognition and similar tech, which is a form of computer vision, not photo reading. Okay, so I had to be schooled by AI what it actually is, computer vision. Okay, and then there's another part to it. It talks about how they did fact-checking partnerships with a bunch of evil corporations, 70 independent evil organizations. Each one, once a piece of misinformation is identified, once a piece of anti-Semitism is identified, AI will find and label and remove millions of posts that are like that and so on. They're just telling you what they'll do later. It actually just came out about that later too, earlier this week, about how they're going to have a new anti-Semitism task force. But the point I'm trying to make is that the technology exists, right? The computer, AI-powered programs can look at an image and draw the text from it. They can tell if you painted a painting and then scribbled in a weird language like Donald Trump's a retard or whatever. It's going to know you said that. If you said something about like it was the Jews, it's going to know. It's going to know. So it's just a fact. They have that ability to read this thing, okay? So think about this for a moment, right? It has the ability to scan images and learn what you're looking at and identify that. And so here we have back to our visible spectrum guide, an understanding that if you wanted to change what it was that people were seeing and hearing, if you wanted to affect people in a way outside of, remember, we looked at like the electromagnetic radiation range, like you're here and then there's radiations of all types outside of the visible spectrum. But if you wanted to affect what was going on here inside the visible spectrum, all you would have to do is affect this one fence post, right? What we see and what we hear is represented by a single post on our picket fence here, which means if you were malicious and you were trying to mess with what people were seeing or hearing, this is the way to do it, to target that available, viable frequency band. And so really, I think about it all the time. This is why people have hallucinations from things like drugs or brain damage or like, for instance, DMT. It's because the chemical is affecting our ability to interpret those visible and audible frequencies. It's creating an interference in a sense, right? Most commonly, like I said, chemicals or like brain trauma, but even like spiritual influence can do this, and it's not always necessarily negative. When Paul, Saul on the road to Damascus is hit by that light from the Lord, his visible spectrum is being affected. His audible spectrum is being affected to where he hears the voice of Christ asking him, why are you persecuting me, Saul? And so there's an impact there where God, using spiritual authority, can reach into the world and show you visions or say things to you that you hear as though you really heard it with your ears. But what you're experiencing is basically an interference in your body's ability to draw in this information using your sensory organs, like your eyes and ears, and then actually interpret that into brain synapse. So it's like it's shortcutting past your eyes and ears and going straight to the receiver on your brain. Now that is an amazing thing when you think about it from the concept of God doing it to you for good. But if you were bad guys and you were trying to figure out how to get the microwave to be inside the guy's brain, or you were trying to like scramble them because they posted too much antiseptic posts on Facebook, this is where you're targeting right now. Okay? So you could imagine, you could combine the technologies, right? You could use the same type of computer vision, that technology that they're using to PDF read or to detect all the real world instances where there's like some kind of violating material, and you could cover it up. You could target the visible and physical audible frequencies of that entity with radiation of interference using a network of interference. So like in the Navy, and like they have, sonar, right? Like ships. They have the ability to emit sound waves and then when the sound bounces back, they can map a location using the sound. Bats do this, other animals do this. It's called echolocation, right? This is like a way that you can map out the world using sound. That same kind of like you're sending out waves of energy, and the frequency is changed as it makes contact with different surfaces of different texture and different angle and different deflection, and you can reabsorb the bouncing of those waves and effectively map out like the ocean floor or like a mountain's interior. And there's ways that they do this, LiDAR and stuff, radar. And so I want to show you guys an example, and we've actually shown this on the show before, but we'll show it again. This is actually from the Dark Knight movie, and it is a scene in which Batman went into this building and left his cell phone there. And once he left his cell phone there, they were able to use it to ping all the other phones in the building. And once they had done that, it created a signature that was specific to the building, and all the phones that were in it were bouncing the signals off together. Check it out. This is going to be, obviously, copyright material that we're viewing only for the sake of knowledge and fair use and all that. We're commentary. We're studying the film a little bit.
Beautiful, isn't it?
Beautiful, unethical, dangerous. You've turned every cell phone in Gotham into a microphone.
And a high-frequency generator receiver.
You took my sonar concept and applied it to every phone in the city. With half the city feeding you sonar, you can image all of Gotham. This is wrong.
I've got to find this man, Lucius.
At what cost?
The database is null key encrypted. It can only be accessed by one person.
This is too much power for one person.
That's why I gave it to you. Only you can use it.
Spying on 30 million people isn't part of my job description.
This is an audio sample. If he talks within range of any phone in the city, you can triangulate his position.
I'll help you this one time.
All right, we don't need to watch the whole thing. I'll help you this one time, spy on 30 million people. I mean, even Morgan Freeman in the movie knows that what they're doing is extremely illegal, completely a violation of the Constitution, and totally unethical. You're using radiation from people's phones to create a 3D geospatial map of the entire city so that you can track down one criminal. Well, what if when they decide you're the one criminal? Because you posted antiseptic stuff on the internet. Well, let's just say they already have this kind of technology, and we have also covered this in the past, but I'll share this with you. Here we go. This is an article from USA Today. Oh, my thing is slowing down. I think we're getting a little we're getting a little bogged down here. Anyway, it's not just a game. Your Pokemon Go player data is training AI map models. So essentially everyone was going around playing Pokemon Go from 2016 and so on. Players of Pokemon Go may not have realized it, but they've been training more than their Pokemon. Niantic, the developer behind the popular mobile game Pokemon Go, announced last week it's building an AI model to map the physical world. This large geospatial model would utilize data collected from players to achieve spatial intelligence, the company said in a blog post. Pokemon Go, first released in 2016, is an augmented reality game where players use their mobile phones to find and catch virtual Pokemon in the real world. In the game, which has had more than 600 million downloads since release, players can also collect items at Pokestops and battle at gyms, which are both located at real-world landmarks. Now, I think there's more. It talks more about how basically everybody went around using their phone not only as a Wi-Fi emitter for that sonar and field mapping, but it also has smartphones and cameras. So you created a front and back facing device, right? It has camera, it sees everything on this side and that side. Whether you give it permission or not is fully irrelevant. I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen how they have the ability to read your mind well enough that they can give you strangely accurate advertisements based on things that you didn't even say out loud. So just keep in mind how crazy real it is, okay? And they've admitted it. Pokemon Go used everyone, not me. I didn't play Pokemon Go, but they used everybody to go after those extra rare Pokemon. What did that look like? Oh, no, not very many people go down that back alley. Put a big fancy Pokemon down there. I'm glad that I couldn't think of one right away. It means it's been too long since I played, which I'm healing. No offense if you like Pokemon, but just there's more important things that are really happening in real life. Anyway, everybody was duped. They went and played Pokemon Go and basically 3D mapped their house, their yard, their work, their office, their back, everywhere, everything, your car, your neighborhood, the whole dang place has been geo-mapped down to the smallest little corner and fragment of your house because of this technology that we all willfully participated in. And so they really do have that. There really is the ability for them to scan the entire physical world using this insane resonant frequency technology and to geo-map the whole world to track where everybody is. And you're combining that, right, with a field of microwaves and x-rays and gamma and radiation from radio tower, radio frequency. You're fully baking right now. And that, I think, is where we get to, like, the culmination, like the piece de resistance or whatever, which is, I guess, what we have one more piece of the puzzle here. If you were doubting whether or not they could actually track you, this is something that we've covered before on the show, but this is a thing that you can purchase from Xfinity. Like, if you have internet through Xfinity, this is for sale right now. This is not theoretical. You can buy it today. Detect movement through the signals traveling between your Xfinity Wi-Fi gateway and other Wi-Fi devices, like a smart TV, speaker, or thermostat, at no extra cost. You don't even have to buy it. It's free because it's probably turned on automatically, right? Get started in minutes, just a few steps. And we looked at this image earlier and we're like, that is so disturbing. It knows the distance between the speaker and the smoke alarm and the clock and the printer and the TV and the trash can, and everything in your house is smart enough to track you, and it knows just how far away from each device you are as it feels your body, your fleshy bag body of electrical signals bouncing off of the Wi-Fi field. They're tracking you. And it's not a joke. As conspiratorial and as crazy as it sounds, that is not the icing on the cake. Because it does get even more crazy than that. And I do have like one final thing I'll drop on you guys, which is probably the craziest, right? Y'all remember back when the big COVID thing was happening, right? And there were all these stories about people getting the jab, And there were these stories about people who were basically emitting, we'll play it. They had their own RFID. These people had basically their own, like, Bluetooth signals that their body was emitting that were nowhere near Wi-Fi routers or other devices. And this is a huge conspiracy, completely unproven and unfounded conspiracy. We're not going to go too far into it. But the point is that this correlates directly with the idea that it wasn't good enough to just have you using your home Wi-Fi or carrying your phone around to get a 3D geospatial map. They wanted to use your body as a ping. They wanted you to be the receiver and transmitter of the new field of radiation, the new high-def HD blazing fast 5G network that allows them to literally track your every move and even potentially read the synapses of your brain, which might correlate with certain interests, ideas, and even the belief in God. That's pretty crazy. But of course, it goes now to our final, I guess you could say, the icing on the cake before we unload my final and most probably unhinged thing that kind of is the culmination of everything I've been doing over the last 3 episodes, which I guess we'll before we drop into it, let's do one final summary, right? We know the world is built on top of the permanent infrastructure of heaven. The world is sand, pliable, and temporal. And because God made it, he has supreme authority over it. But that doesn't mean that there are not illegal, improper channels that you can go by to manipulate it. In the same way that Jesus says, faith the size of a mustard seed will give you the power to move a mountain by the power of your words, we have invented bulldozers the size of buildings, dump trucks that can haul 100,000 pounds of debris at once. And so we, in many ways, as humans, have said to God, I don't need your ability, I'll make my own. And when we look at what may have been the millennial kingdom infrastructure of beautiful resonant technologies, we see a correct way of being in juxtaposition to our rotten brutalism world of counterfeit technology and even toxic radio waves and continuous wave technology and everything you can imagine from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5G up to even today, which is just so crazy. And so the final thing is we are touching back on an idea that long ago I spoke about. Now, long ago, a few weeks back we talked about it. And it was because I had a problem. And the problem that I had was that I did not have an explanation that I felt was suitable to something that I knew was taking place, but I could not explain it. I could not identify with it because the final explanation given was in essence correct, but it wasn't complete. I needed to know how, and I needed to know why, not just who. Because at the end of the day, if you say, what is wrong with the world today? Satan, Satanism, people that are satanic stuff, Satan. The world is in trouble because of evil, right? Evil is the darkness in the world, corrupting the purity of God's light. Evil is the darkness in our world, corrupting the hearts of mankind, introducing us to all kinds of terrible ideas and even terrible illnesses as a direct result of living in the frequencies of darkness, the counterfeit energy translation, the telecommunication that operates as fraudulent telepathy. We're all on the phones, we're on Wi-Fi, we're data transferring everywhere. Is there a proper spiritual way to do it? Obviously, Saul met him on the road in Tarsus, and he didn't get a phone call, nor did the two guys who were standing close enough to feel the beam hitting them in the brain too. They heard the voice of God because the voice of God is real, or in this case, the voice of Christ, obviously. And that is because Christ has the power to do all these things without technology, without equipment, and for the purpose of Father's will in the world, which is what we should be aiming to do. Not participating in transhumanist agendas to augment ourselves closer to the desire of our heart, when we should realize that the true highest form of humanity comes when we correct our course and get into righteousness with God. That's how you become a truly ascended being. That's how you truly transcend the iniquity of your flesh. You become one with God through Christ, and all the iniquity passes away, right? So if we're in this world today, it's field-based, it's manipulatable. They have frequency bands all around us, a giant field. They can see things through computer vision, and the computer vision can identify objects moving around in your house on Wi-Fi. It has a 3D map of the world, a 3D geospatial map of the world, and it can tell where you are in it, and it can tell what you're looking at, and it can tell what you're listening to, and it can see all of those visible and invisible frequencies that we can't see. And this computer system, this Skynet from way worse than any Terminator movie I can imagine, already exists right now. It's already bouncing signals around in your house. It already knows where you are, what you're doing. It already knows what you're thinking. It's already advertising you more parts for your Mercedes. It knows what's going on. And so that is utterly terrifying. And if it weren't for the fact that I belong to a God who created everything and has the ultimate control over all of these fields and systems, I would be quite concerned. And I'm still maybe quite concerned. But the point is, I'm going to show you guys something that is, I think, really the answer to everything that I've been looking for this whole time. There are people in this world who saw things and read things and heard things and remember things. And no matter how hard they try to find it again, they can't find it. It's gone. It's different. And just like the way they tell you, you can't trust your eyes or your ears or your senses. You're on a ball flying through space because we said it is, not because of what you feel or because of what you know internally in your soul. You're gaslit and lied to and expected to believe that you are crazy, that you have lost your touch with reality, when in reality, it's reality that has lost touch with you. Check it out. Now, this might just be a video, okay? But I want you to understand the principle of the concept. If this is real, then it explains absolutely everything. Check it out. Roll film.
This old phone shows a parallel dimension. So this person has an old phone that when they record with it is able to identify a parallel universe where a Mandela effect has apparently occurred. So many people remember Britney Spears having a plaid skirt in this video. But then when you look it up, every video shows her wearing a black skirt, except when you apparently record it with an old phone. And then there's the Oops, I Did It Again video where everyone remembers Britney Spears having a microphone attached to her face. But then when you look up the video, no microphone. But again, when this person uses that same old phone, there's clearly a microphone. And again, if it's never been, why are so many dolls and costumes using it? So many people remember Ellie Woods having a pink car and Legally Blonde. But apparently, no, she didn't. So let's use the phone. Looks like a pink car to me. Now, did Pikachu have a black tail or a yellow tail? The phone says black, but reality says yellow. Do you remember Looney Tunes with a U or Looney Tunes with an OO? Reality says U, but old phone says OO.
Okay. Yeah, so, guys, I can't tell you that video is real. And I don't even know if I believe it is, right? Because everything on the internet's fake. I mean, what even is real anymore? I'm sorry, I'm done. We can't trust our senses, guys. We don't know if what we're looking at is real or fake. So let me just tell you, I have not been content with the idea that there is some sort of mastermind twiddling his fingers, ethereally reprogramming the world, changing what really is. I just could never get down with that. And my good buddy, Ceiling Fan Man, is a great researcher on this stuff, and it's not fair to tell a guy like that, you're crazy. You don't know what you're looking at. I know too, man. This stuff ain't right. There's gotta be an explanation, and I go back to the fence post, man. I go back to the fence post and I say, they don't have to change the world. All they have to change is one post on the fence. All they have to do is use 3D geospatial mapping and photo viewing. Computer vision and 3D geospatial mapping technology. They can tell what you're looking at. They can see the text on the page. They can tell what book you have in your hand, what book is sitting there on your desk. They have the ability to view it through wavelengths such as X-ray or gamma to see things on a level that you can't see. They can go 4 or 5 fence posts down to figure out what it is that's visible to you on this one. And they can say, what do we need to overlay on top of it, right? You're already swimming in a continuous wave. The RF is already basking. Our balls are simmering in radio frequencies as we speak, gentlemen. And ladies, you're also basking. So hear me out, right? It's not that there's a magic demon dragon just simply speaking the world into material change. There is an evil, multi-generational, satanic cult criminal mafia who possesses some incredible technology that allows them to manipulate the space between your sensory organs and your soft, squishy brain. And that isn't because you're stupid, or because you're crazy, or because you're schizophrenic. And we have for the longest time allowed people who thought that the world was different to just think they were just crazy. And look, I'm trying to dig it up. I'm trying to find an example of it over here and over there. And why then? Why does Richard's book have a line of scripture that doesn't correlate to the actual image in the book that shows the text the way we all remember it? Why? It's because the overlay doesn't know the painting, but it does know the pages. It knows those lines in the book. And so when you look at it, there's a 3-dimensional geospatial radiation field overlay. It's like a hologram. The book is really there. The page is really there. The text is really there. But we cannot see past it with our eyes. Because your eyes only see through a pinhole, and they pasted a photo in front of the pinhole. It's that simple. As crazy as it is, I have produced proof that they have a field-based system, an electromagnetic spectrum-based, 3D geospatial mapping, radiation-based interference technology that we already know fries your balls and kills your sperm. So how do we know that it doesn't make it that when you read the Bible, it just produces the wrong damn text? It's misinformation now that you're fasting as well as praying. It's misinformation now that it's on earth as in heaven. It's misinformation now that there was a cornucopia on the logo or a microphone on Britney Spears. When I saw that one, I forgot all about that. We used to call that a Britney Spears mic. That's what we called it as a kid. We called that little black headphone mic. We called that a Britney Spears mic because everybody saw that music video. I was a kid. That was formative. Am I insane, or is there an overlay? And think about it, right? An old phone. It operates using a technology for cameras that's been taken out. We don't use those anymore. They're archaic. All the phones are on the new technology. It's why they constantly want you to trade in your old phone for a new one so they can institute another level of technology. What's crazy? This phone's like 8 years old, 6 or 8 years old, LG Stylo 5. I got it when it was like brand new. My new phone gets worse service and worse Wi-Fi than this. Why? Why does the old phone work better? Because half of the technology in the new phone is used to spy on you, not to make your connection strength better. It only uses half its connection for the internet and the other half to spy on you. It's like it's the most obvious thing ever. The reason the Mandela effect is happening is because they're trying to drive you crazy. They're trying to destroy only the stuff that matters. It doesn't matter if there's a cornucopia on your underwear. It matters if the scripture says what you knew it said, and that you're crazy for not being able to prove it. And how could you? If you show someone the page, they too will see the overlay, the technological counterfeit of a field-based system that could be used for good, could be used to paint the world in a beautiful hue of light and love and harmony. And instead, it paints a field of chaos and confusion and disorder. And for so long, we allowed ourselves to believe that the world was pliable and that we were firm and immovable. And the reality is that we are flesh. God's world belongs to God, and He is the master of the frequencies. But this brain is yours, and it's pliable, and it's under the influence of a dangerous field of interference technology. And I don't believe that's a myth. I think it's totally real. As unhinged as the conspiracy is, I think it makes perfect sense. Is Satan behind it? Sure. But is the world changing, or is it just the way we perceive it? You see, that apple on the tree always stood for the same thing, the knowledge of good and evil. And when Eve was told to bite the fruit, He didn't say to her, well, that's the knowledge of good and evil. God related her perspective. And here we are in the world today, looking at our world vastly manipulated. Our perspective on everything is funneled through, filtered through some sort of satanic media organization, some sort of a third party, some social media, some TV device, some sort of a radiation emitting thing. Everything we know is basked in radioactive fields, electromagnetic fields and radiation. Effectively, we can't even trust our own eyes, and we knew that already. But now I get it. Now I get it why you can open the Bible and it says something different than what you thought it said, because it does. If you could really see through it, if you could get 1999 cell phone vision, you could probably just see everything as it is. At least everything as it was before they changed it. But I don't think it's impossible. I think it's just unlikely that people will see through it, because we're literally in that stage of history. I don't know what you want to call it. The beginning of what age, or the end of what age, or the time or season you believe, and that's up to you to decide. But the next time you think, there's no way this is real, there's no way, you're being gaslit. You're not crazy. You're not schizophrenic. You're seeing something that's there that other people can't see. Or you're seeing something there that shouldn't be there, but you can see it anyway. And that to me is one of the most sinister things of all time. If there's ever been a reason to cling to faith, it's that. To realize that the only thing we know for sure is that narrow path, right? We talk about the narrow way, and we look at like the visible spectrum. Well, on either side of the visible spectrum is pitfalls and dangerous technology. And if Christ represents the narrow way, I mean, He represents something even more finite than that, something even more narrow than that. Like a reality that the only way to get to heaven, to see the kingdom of God, is to truly enter by this narrow gate. We got to lean on Jesus for everything. When I sit here and I say, the reason I don't fear this kind of stuff, AI, transhumanism, field-based electromagnetic doomsday technology, geospatial 3D mapping, it's like, are we so mad? Like as if we've only just now realized that we aren't safe in the privacy of our own room? Did anyone ever think that they could hide from the eye of God? That we weren't already 3D geospatially mapped by the King and author of the universe who made everything with the sound of His voice? No human spent a day of their life outside of the purview of God. No moment have we sat thinking we were alone, thinking that no one else could hear us, and not realizing now that God knew the deepest thoughts of our heart. He always did. He knows our struggles. He knows our our prosperity, our failures, our successes. He knows everything. And with that reality, we shouldn't be too surprised to find out that Satan's been trying to do the same thing all along. And he may have in this era finally done it. And what does that mean for all of us? It means obviously you can't believe what you've been told or what you see with your own eyes, but that's never been what faith was about. Hope is for the things we can't see. Faith is about believing you can walk on water even though you were told you couldn't all your life. If anything, realizing that they're manipulating the world on this level should only tell you that your salvation and your identity in Christ is so important that he saw it through to the end in the midst of the craziest time in history. The most deceptive evolution of mind control and effectively hypnosis. I wrote it down. I said, what did I call it? Oh, crap. No, I had a great description for it. What did I call it? Whatever. I thought I wrote it down. It was really good. It's essentially a telepathic radiation field-based neural interface system being used to generate a hallucinatory hypnosis. The world is not as pliable as our minds. And I think that it's actually true. We're seeing things that aren't really there. The Bible really does say what you thought it said, dude. I think you're right. I think. I mean, what else are you supposed to say? I think this gives us an actual attainable explanation for this. Like, why is there a Mandela effect? Because they're doing it on purpose. No one's denying that. Satan's behind it. No one's denying that. But this is the mechanism, right? This is the how. The new expansive geospatial 3D radiation-based brain synapse interference hologram projector. I don't know what you want to call it. It sounds insane. This is what I mean by the perfected device, right? That's the theme of this. This episode is to basically explain that they have perfected a total mind control device. And if you don't cling to Jesus with everything you have, you will be washed away by the storm. You know, we talk about the whole foundations of stone versus foundations of sand. Jesus Christ is the rock. We have to build our foundation on the rock because he represents that perfect spiritual integrity. The foundation of all the universe is built on that eternity of which he represents, and the world is like sand. And so Jesus is our gateway, our pathway, our connection to that solid thing that is solid, that can't be changed or manipulated, the reality, the truth, heaven, and the kingdom of God, which cannot be changed. Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So you'll never look at him and find someone else. You'll never seek him and find someone else, no matter what they do to the ability to see things with your eyes in the world. I really think it's possible, right? That when I look at something with my eyeballs, they probably know too. You know, all your eyes are is just a sensory organ. There's no way that the system couldn't just see through your eyes or hear through your ears, especially if you're hooked up to the data network. I don't know what that looks like. I like to think that the Lord protects my senses a little bit better than that, but you know, I'm already saved and I already trust him. I don't care what a piece of paper says. At this point, my Bible is Jesus Christ. You know, I'm past 66 book canon. You know, which one is it? Which one's accurate? I know it matters for the sense of understanding the way, the truth, and the life, but really, Jesus is the living word of God. He's the one true way to get there. You know, books are good for knowledge and reproof and for teaching and for learning and for everything else. But Jesus really is the author and perfecter of our faith, the one whom we should fix our eyes upon. So when we look at something and we see something and we don't know if we can trust it, look to Jesus, because you can trust him. All right? I got one more thing for you guys. Just the other day, Donald Trump came out talking about what he called 6G. And he said, so we're into 6G now. Yeesh. I was a leader on 5G, getting that done. What does that do? Give you a little bit deeper view into somebody's skin? I like the cameras of the old days, he says. Let's hear it. Let's see if he says it right here. No, I'm not doing that. Okay, it's not going to play. But basically, so he says we're into 6G now. I was a leader on 5G, getting that done. What does that do? Give you a little bit deeper view into somebody's skin? I like the cameras of the old days. I'm certain that this is him giving hints, right? So they're all saying he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's so stupid. I don't know about that, dude. I don't know if he's so stupid. When I think about 6G, I start thinking, hold up, wait a minute. What can start seeing through your skin? X-rays, my friend. Now, we've been running radio frequencies up here this whole time, but what if 6G found a way to do it down here? And I think the reason why that's so important is twofold, right? Because we can see through you, so we can find out if you have the little chip that we injected everyone with. We'll be able to tell from a distance if you have it, right? But we'll also be able to tell if you're hiding any weapons or plans or anything. Any kind of antiseptic literature in your book there? Is that The International Jew by Henry Ford? Oh, I'm crashing out. This dream's crashing out. I see it lagging. Guys, I don't know. I'm going to have to close some tabs. I'm like on that ceiling fan man level. There's too much going on. Too many advertisements. Oh, holy moly, it froze. Oh, shoot. Hey, we got there, though. We almost got... Oh, it straight up froze, man. I hope it didn't, crash the stream. Oh, it got rid of that tab. Okay. That tab was the one causing problems. We'll just start kind of trickling down a little bit. Can I just... Well, okay, I do have one more. It froze. I'm definitely freezing because I think I went a little too far with all the keywords tonight. Woo! Okay. Well, guys, I don't know what else to say. I think I managed to make it happen, right? 2 hours. The Mandela effect is caused by a crazy radioactive radiation 3G, 5G, geospatial mind interference hypnosis beam caused by Satan. Yeah. Yep. Guys, we'll put all this research up on the Patreon. We'll get it up there this weekend or something if you guys, want to get into that and all the correlations with the tech and the pandemics and everything that happened. And yeah, crazy, man. Really crazy to think about. We might be living in a giant matrix, right? Keanu bends the spoon. It's there is no spoon. That's the biggest part about it all, right? There never was a spoon. That's crazy, man. That's why we got to trust Jesus. Because Jesus is the main deal. You can't get rid of him. He lasts forever. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, right? A dominion and glory, a kingdom that all people and nations and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed. And I guess my final word to all of you guys is just to say that God is so sovereign and powerful. He made everything, of every field, of every symbol, of every image, of every color, of every light and every sound. They were all his to begin with, and they will all be his again. All things will be reclaimed and brought to light. The world will pass away in its former state, and a new heaven and new earth will be made. That is our ultimate hope, our ultimate promise. That is destination kingdom for everybody. Everybody who enters, everyone who's born again and believes in the Son of Man. That is such a good and hopeful message for the future of what is to come for all of us. Jesus says not to worry about tomorrow, for today's problems are sufficient for themselves. And these are today's problems that we're facing right now. But we shouldn't face them in fear and wonder. We should face them with trust, faith, and authority. We should know that God has a plan to prosper and never to harm his people, and that all things work together for good for those who love God and are called according to his purposes. And as crazy as it gets out there, we have to remember that God wins. God is victorious in the end. He doesn't lose a single one of his sheep. And that means that we're going to see this through to the end. And really, my kingdom mentality tells me, hey, I'm going to need a surveillance network so we can clear out all this heathen BS going on in the world. Talk about maximum ultimate degenerate book burning. I have located every copy of Karl Marx's work on Earth. You ever wonder how they got rid of all the DVDs and stuff of that Sinbad movie? They scanned the grid, man. They found them. and we will do the same thing. And all of your Luciferian BS, all of your underground temples and tunnels, all of your secret chapels of Satan will be rooted out and destroyed in the name of Jesus and for his kingdom. And that's the glorious thing about it. Just wait until we get the lever of power and we unleash Skynet on all these heathens. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not afraid of that. Who's going to build it? Thanks, heathens, for building our new kingdom control network. Every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess. And if you don't, we know where to find you. But don't worry, we're not asking for permission to make the world a better place. We'll turn all those signals over and we'll make it all good, right? It's all for the good and restoration of the world. You know, that's what God wants from us, right? To be people of the kingdom, to have dominion, to set things right. I believe that we will do that, either in our lives or in generations to come. It doesn't matter. What matters is that we pick up our cross and follow him daily, even in the midst of all this. What does that mean? This is our cross. We live in a crazy Mandela fake world, like radiation storm all around us. We better lean on God, because as soon as we look away, we're sinking in that water, okay? Let's get out on that sea and walk, everybody. I love you all. Thank you so much for being here for level 73 of the Main Character Podcast, made possible by the Cult of Con. That's you guys. I'm Con Man, and thank you for being here. Tonight's episode was made possible by the Christian Dominion movement, because the truth should not only be declared, it should be imposed. And that means that our future is Destination Kingdom. All right? All right, guys. Y'all have a great night. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you all next week. Take it easy, guys.
Kool-Aid you can drink. It's a scam, it's a plan, it's a con, and I'm your man. You know I tell it like it is. I hold the secrets in my hands. Reflection and introspection is my profession. I'm recklessly disrespecting what you expect and investing in my discretion, teaching the lessons, impressions to keep you guessing what I do next, man.
Now when the 1,000 years have expired, Satan will be released from his prison. He will go forth to deceive the nations which are in the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together for the final battle, an army whose number is as the sand of the sea.
It's amazing the affirmations that come my way when I fake it until I make it. The truth is waiting, complacent organizations. They say I'm racist, they hate and they making payments on my vacation. I'm the man, I'm the king, I'm rejecting what you think. Rearranging your mentality, got some Kool-Aid you can drink. It's a scam, it's a plan, it's a con, and I'm your man. You know I tell it like it is. I hold the secrets in my hand.